What up, AOK Mafia? It's your boy Artofkickz. Just like that, we back with another one. Alright, y'all, so today we got a video. Look, I ain't even gonna say it, but anyway, I'm confusing you, I know. This is 8 household animals who ate their owners. Oh, see, look. Okay. Y'all ready? I'm not. Let's go.
Here are 8 household animals who ate their owners. These barbaric
See, if you got one of those, then you was a fool for that, because that's not a household animal.
beasts will make you think twice about getting yourself a pet. Today's video...
Yeah, that's what I didn't want to say 30 seconds ago, because now I'm thinking twice about getting myself a pet.
was done in collaboration with Down the Rabbit Hole. More on that later.
Don't they know I'm jumpy? Can't be doing that stuff.
Number 8. The flesh-eating lizards. When Ron Huff didn't show up for work, one of his relatives became very worried and called the police to his apartment in Newark, Delaware.
Okay.
Mr. Huff was the owner of several flesh-eating Nile lizards,
Again, that's not a household pet.
which he would reportedly allow to roam freely around his house. The largest of them measured around 6 feet and weighed 25 pounds. In the wild,
How is something 6 feet long and only weigh 25 pounds? That's crazy.
Nile monitor lizards can eat birds, eggs, and other animals, and in captivity, they're usually fed raw chicken and liver. Ownership of these animals, which are considered exotic pets in Delaware, requires a permit specifically from the Department of Agriculture. It remained unclear, however, whether Mr. Huff did have exotic pet permits for all of these lizards. When the police arrived,
That answer's no. The answer's no. He did not have a permit. Because if he did, it would be very clear that he did. Look, y'all.
at his apartment, they found the reptiles feasting on their owner's decaying corpse. Armed with small and very sharp teeth and muscular whip-like tails, these animals have the ability to cause serious damage to a person. A team from the Delaware Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals recovered 7 reptiles from Mr. Huff's apartment. The SPCA's intentions
He had him in an apartment. How dumb.
were to place them with the educational groups or into zoos. A subsequent medical report was unable to determine the root cause behind Ron Huff's death.
Yeah, they ate him. That was the death. That was the cause of his death. They were just eating on this man. That's crazy.
An attack by his beloved lizards was not overruled.
I bet that's
Number
what happened.
7, James Little. The emergency services were called to 61-year-old James Little's Oregon house in March of 2011. This was after a report by the man that his dog had consumed part of his body. According to animal experts, dogs have an instinctual tendency to remove diseased flesh. In accordance with its instinctual behavior, Mr. Little's dog ate 3 of his toes while he slept. The man did suffer from diabetes, and a common symptom of the disease is numbness in the hands or the feet.
Yeah.
This was seen as the primary reason why he didn't wake up in screams as a Shiba Inu was eating his flesh. Animal control officers took away the dog and concluded that it didn't pose any threat. And despite losing 3 toes, Mr. Little recovered and decided to put his dog up for adoption. Number 6, Carrie.
That is very fascinating that some dogs are capable of smelling disease within humans. I've heard many stories of people finding out that they had cancer or some sort of ailment because their dog would sniff them and make concerning sounds. So the people end up getting checked out to discover that they indeed had something. Dogs are amazing. Maybe I need to get a dog.
Waldo. 27-year-old Carrie Waldo from Jackson County, Kansas, pled guilty to second-degree child endangerment after the family's pet ferret attacked her infant son. On the 10th of January 2010, the police were called to the residence of Ryan and Carrie Waldo, where they found a 4-month-old covered in blood. The couple told the investigators that they were asleep in the house at the time of the attack and that the ferret had never bitten anyone in the past. After using GPS tracking technology and acquiring cell phone records, the investigators later discovered that the couple had been texting from 2 different locations at the time of the attack. It was also revealed that the ferret had bitten the infant twice in the past, and that the Waldo family was trying to get rid of it and had previously contacted a ferret rescue organization. After seeing his son in a pool of blood, Mr. Waldo threw the ferret into a dishwasher, killing it instantly. The infant was taken to a local hospital in critical condition, with only 2 thumbs and a partial pinky still attached to his hands.
What? Oh my God, I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine that happening to my baby. This ferret is sitting there chewing off my child's fingers. Oh my God. Parental discretion is advised. I didn't know what the heck this was. Look, I should have assumed. I try not to assume, but I should have assumed with the title of this video. Goodness gracious. What? Link to the original will be down in the description box below. Y'all gotta check out their channel. This is wild.
7 of the infant's fingers had to be amputated because they'd been chewed down all the way to the knuckles. The presence of human blood was also discovered inside of the ferret's stomach. As part of the sentence, Mrs. Waldo was given 2 years of probation in order to attend a 30-day drug recovery program. Mr. Waldo, who also pleaded guilty to second-degree child endangerment, was ordered to serve 40 hours of community service. Both were denied contact with their children while carrying out their sentences. Number 5. Janet Veal.
Poor baby.
On the 4th of April in 2013, the decomposing body of 56-year-old Janet Veal was discovered on the kitchen floor of her Ringwood house in Hampshire, England. Mrs. Veal was estranged from her husband, lived alone, and was described as a bit of a recluse. The woman's neighbors had alerted the police after noticing that she'd been absent for a very extended period of time, and that her letterbox was literally overflowing. The police investigated, using a ladder to enter the semi-detached property through an unsecured upstairs window. What they discovered inside the house was described as a distressing scene. In the kitchen and the living room, they found the rotting carcasses of a cat and a dog. A thick layer of trash covered the floor, and the house had not been aired for weeks, possibly months. Several of Janet Veal's pets had already died of starvation when they arrived, but the few that had survived did so by eating parts of her dead body. She was gnawed and eaten by her cats, which had not been fed in weeks. A post-mortem medical report concluded that the woman had died of natural causes, possibly related to a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Number 4. Harry and Sally. After their 51-year-old owner tragically committed suicide by shooting himself in the face, 2 pugs named Harry and Sally were forced to eat his remains so that they wouldn't starve to death. They survived by consuming pieces of his brain, his face, and his torso. They were discovered by police in Papillon, a suburb of Omaha, Nebraska, in December of 2009, found several weeks after the time of death that the investigators had determined for their owner. Even though no trace of blood or human tissue was found in the digestive system of either dog, it was the only possible conclusion that the police would arrive to in order to account for the missing body parts in the cadaver.
That's crazy to think these poor pups had to resort to eating their owner. It probably took them a while before they actually decided that they wanted to do that or needed to do that to survive.
Harry and Sally were taken by the authorities, who wanted to assess the physical and the psychological impact that this ordeal had had on them. After an extended examination, it was concluded that they were in perfect health and that their temperaments were normal. They were deemed eligible for adoption and soon found a new, loving family.
I'm glad that, they decided to do that, because that's exactly what I was wondering. I'm like, yo, can you evaluate these dogs' mental health or psychological health after going through such an ordeal like that to see if they are suitable for adoption? And yeah, that's exactly what they did. I'm glad they did that.
Number 3, Sandra Piovasan. In July of 2006, the body of 50-year-old Sandra Piovasan was discovered inside a 50-foot by 150-foot enclosure in her backyard where she kept 9 wolf dog hybrid canines. Mrs. Piovasan's daughter became worried after her mother hadn't shown up for a meeting they'd planned for the morning of the incident. She talked to her father, who then went to the house where Mrs. Piovasan lived alone in order to check up on her.
She lived there alone and she had them wolf dogs in her backyard?
Discovered her partially eaten body inside of the enclosure. When animal control and state police arrived on the site, they euthanized the animals by shooting them with darts containing a deadly serum. After the autopsy, the investigation concluded that the woman had sustained multiple soft tissue wounds and that her death had been caused by the wolf dog attack. An animal expert claimed that wolves normally run away from humans out of fear, and that breeding them with domestic dogs eliminates this fear, which can make them even more dangerous.
That makes perfect sense. But what's also crazy is the fact that this woman was eaten alive by her own pets. That's insane. Oh, I couldn't imagine. Ooh, ooh. Poor lady. She didn't deserve that.
The canines reportedly weighed 70 to 100 pounds, and some of them were 7, even 8 years old. The animals were reportedly healthy prior to the incident, and Miss Piovasan had raised them since they were pups. And so,
look at that mess. Look at that mofo back there. Look at these mofos, man. Nah.
Saw them as her own children. She fed them beef, roadkill, or any scraps of meat that she could find. Miss Piovasan had received several complaints from her neighbors in the past, but they were mostly concerned just with the noise and the canines howling. One possible reason for the attack was that the animals were confined to a plot of land that was just too small for them. A pack that size would normally require 50 to 100 square miles in order to roam. Another possibility was that the animals were particularly agitated as the attack had occurred during their mating season. Number 2, Andre Lumbosa. In August of 2011, Andre Lumbosa went on a 2-week holiday at the end of the Ramadan religious festival, leaving his dogs behind without any access to water or food. Wow. Within just the first couple days, 2 of the weaker, smaller dogs were eaten by the larger ones. On the 31st of August, Mr. Lumbosa returned home. After leaving his luggage by the front door, he entered the house to greet his pets. Hunger, however, had changed the dogs he once knew into feral, ravenous carnivores that lunged at the first piece of meat to walk inside the house in almost 2 weeks. They tore the man apart, reportedly decapitating him and layering the house with blood and pieces of his body. A neighborhood guard was passing the house a few days later and happened to notice the luggage that Mr. Lumbosa had left on his front steps. As the guard approached the house, he felt a strange smell coming from inside and alerted the authorities. Before the police could even enter the residence, they had to neutralize the dogs. The gruesome scene they discovered once inside led them to the conclusion that the man had been butchered by his 7 canines.
He had 7 dogs. Oh! I mean, he had, 7 left. Because 2 of the little ones, whoa! That's crazy! Bro, what was you thinking? You got that many dogs? You needed a house sitter, somebody to look after them dogs, or you should have took the dogs somewhere. You thought, what? 2 weeks you were gone and you let your dogs just starve? You put out enough food for 1 day. Probably. And all them dogs ate that up in 1 day. They were probably still hungry after that. Boy, ooh. It's crazy. I can imagine. You should have came home with like arm full of freaking meat and dog food and threw it in the house and then let them get full, and then you can go in there and kind of pet them, be like, hey, I'm back. Y'all miss me? Y'all remember me, right? I know. I'm sorry I didn't feed you for 2 weeks. Y'all, dang, y'all ate that in 1 minute. Dang, that was 50 pounds of food. Y'all was hungry, huh? I'm sorry. I mean, R.I.P. buddy, but you kind of had that coming. You should have fed your dogs.
Number 1, Gypsy the Python. In July of 2009, an albino Burmese python attacked...
What the freak? Did that hiss come from this? I was not expecting that hiss. I thought there was this big snake behind me or something. Look, y'all. Y'all know how I get. Y'all know how I get.
An albino Burmese python attacked and killed a 2-year-old girl in Oxford, Florida. The toddler was discovered in her cot with the python coiled around her lifeless body and its fangs sunk into her forehead. It was preparing to swallow her whole. The girl's mother, 21-year-old Jaren Hare, and her boyfriend, 34-year-old
This woman had a big old albino python. That's crazy.
Charles Darnell were convicted of third-degree manslaughter along with child neglect and sentenced to 12 years in prison. The python, named Gypsy, had been a member of the household for over 5 years. In the months leading up to the incident, the serpent, measuring approximately 8 feet and 2 inches, had been starved as the family could no longer afford to feed it.
Then get rid of it. You don't just let the thing starve.
Last meal had consisted of a squirrel it found on the side of the road. When it was recovered, Gypsy only weighed a life-threatening 13 pounds, as opposed to their normal weight of 120 pounds.
120 pounds is what that thing was supposed to weigh. It was only 13 pounds.
The tank in which it was kept was improperly secured, with a duvet thrown over the top, tethered loosely with bungee cords and safety pins. It had already escaped a number of times prior to attacking 2-year-old Cheyenne, but still, the family made no improvements on its enclosure and continued to ignore feeding it properly. When Mr. Darnell saw the serpent coiled around his toddler, he stabbed it several times with a 6-inch knife and meat cleaver in a desperate attempt to save his girl. Unfortunately, it was already too late. Researchers...
Oh my God. Ooh, I'm sick. I am sick after that. Viewer discretion is advised, bro. Woo! My baby girl. Ah, I couldn't imagine. I could not imagine. Whew. Look, y'all know what time it is. Link to the original gonna be down in the description box below. I'm gonna catch y'all in the next one. See ya.